Hi everybody, my name is Doragon and welcome back to Destiny 2. Later today we will get Destiny 2 Shadowkeep as of 6 PM UK time, delayed to the 1st of October 2019 as opposed to its mid-September original announcement. As such, the Season of Opulence, the final season from the Forsaken Season Pass, had to wind down over a longer period of time than originally designed. Whilst we wait for Shadowkeep to release during this 24 hours of maintenance, I thought now would be a great time to take a look at the season itself and maybe a look overall at Destiny 2 Year 2. Now, Season of Opulence's marketing was based around a new 6-man match-made activity, something that had never been done before in the Destiny universe. This new activity, known as the Menagerie, was a breath of fresh air to an otherwise stale and repetitive model. Usually with a new release, you had a new threat, you had a new quest, new intrigue is put on the board, and usually it's not resolved by the end of the season. You have to wait for a new DLC release further down the line to resolve what has been risen in this particular season. The Menagerie, however, was different. This time, Emperor Callus was, I suppose you can say, the antagonist, and he was sending us back to the Leviathan simply for a loot grind. Now, the idea of this is he wants to help you grow fat with strength and be ready for the oncoming darkness, similar to what the Drifter is doing. But you went in, match-made activity, basically raid light. Now, to get there, we first had to go to Nessus, and a new barge parked above it. Spoke to one of the hangar bots that has been repurposed for Callus's use, complete a few tasks, and we would gain an item called the Chalice of Opulence. This chalice would allow us access to the Menagerie and all of the loot that came from within, loot that we ourselves could dictate via runes earned in any activity on any of the worlds. Now, this is the first time in Destiny history that loot has been this on demand. The roles were still subject to RNG, at least for some extent for a while, but you could dictate exactly what you were going to get out of that end chest. Now, the Chalice of Opulence was an upgradable item. The more you upgrade it, the more control you have over the loot that you receive. At maximum upgrade, it would give you multiple drops, refund some runes upon completion of a Menagerie run, drop mod components for that particular season, and you could also dictate the masterwork of the item. So taking hand cannons, for example, they work best with range. Add that range masterwork on through a choice of coloured rune, and you're good to go. Now, as an overall solo player, whose friends partake in the game at rare intervals, having a match-made 6-man activity allowed me to get that raid experience without having to utilise LFG or sit waiting for people to understand encounters. With a no-fail mechanic in the Menagerie, it was wonderful to just charge through, do as much as you can. As people got better through the course of the season, people could move into raids, and they had an idea, so even if you were a complete new player entering your first ever raid, you had a bigger and better idea of how the mechanics within a raid would work than you would have done prior to the Menagerie's release. Now, make no mistake, the Menagerie is hard. At the start of the season, it was at 690 power level. We all started the season 40 light below that at 650. As it progressed, a heroic version was also released up near the level cap, well over 700. And you had to have a team together to enter into that one. It made no bones about a wider story arc, and it was there solely for the loot. It was a wonderful break from what we've experienced with Destiny previously. Now, the Menagerie was not the only point of this season. 6 hours into the first day of release, the new raid, the Crown of Sorrows, was released for the world's first chase. Now, I personally didn't take part in this because my friends were off playing other games at the time, but did keep a close eye upon it on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, for run-throughs and the announcement of the victors. Bungie, for the first time ever, added in contest modifiers to make the race fair for everybody entering the Leviathan again. And 8 or so hours later, the raid itself was cleared. Now, for me, I entered in a few weeks later. The Crown of Sorrows is a strange one. The mechanics are the same throughout. You shoot crystals, you swap a buff, you rinse and repeat. Now, whilst this is engaging and fun on your first run through, repeated visits make you realise the experience becomes a drag, making this one of my least favourite raids in the history of Destiny. It almost seems as if Crown of Sorrows was designed only with the first attempt in mind, and it didn't take into account the repeated visits that many players will make to a raid, and therefore how the encounters should be balanced so that they're still fun on repeated visits. As this is the pinnacle activity for the season, to have a feeling of boredom whilst playing it is incredibly sad. The loot also felt quite lackluster, and with only 4 drops through the raid and only 3 of those being powerful on such a limited loot pool, in 2 runs you had pretty much everything. And suddenly, with the boredom that you feel from playing it, there's no reason to return to the raid, even to Sherpa or the Guardians. So one overwhelming positive point and one rather negative. At this time, Season of Opulence is fairly balanced overall in what it offers the player. But there's more to a season than just a raid and a new activity drop. So as with previous seasons, there was a roadmap that came along with the Season of Opulence. This roadmap outlined exotic quests, 2 to be precise, and 2 other live activities that would go on through the course of the season. The exotic quests were for the Rose Hand Cannon and the Bad Juju exotic pulse rifle. Now these came both from quest lines, but they were vastly different in their makeup. One involved permanent player input, and the other required us to complete specific feats up to a certain level to be able to access a separate quest at that point, a separate mission from the Tribute Hall. Now this variation in the exotic quest made the acquisition of both guns much more satisfying than it would have been had it been complete long quest lines similar to what Thorn had been a couple of seasons previous, times 2. The Tribute Hall itself opened up many new avenues of play and made you do some things that you wouldn't have otherwise done within the Destiny sphere. For hardcore streamer players, it was a quick and easy grind to get to the Bad Juju exotic pulse rifle through the Tribute Hall, and for the more casual player, or those who are consumer players such as myself, the 2 quests gave us a solid grind, one that didn't feel out of reach, nor so easy that it felt as if the guns were handed to us. I personally felt that the balance between these 2 quests was perfectly struck, and it's a good basis for exotic quest models in the future. Have one of those standard, go here, shoot 25 of these, go there, shoot 30 of those, that sort of model. And one where you have to do completely out of the box things like just wearing Callus themed gear to play 25 Crucible matches. You wouldn't do that normally, and it's nice to do something different and have a reason for doing something different other than to just muck around within the game. The guns themselves, they weren't game-changing, at least at that point in time. With the Well of Radiance, Lunafaction boots, Rally barricades, all these other auto-reloading systems, there was nothing that they did better than anything else already in the sandbox. But come the Shadowkeep sandbox changes and all the buffs and nerfs that we are seeing there, it is very well possible that Bad Juju and Rose could find themselves as top-tier weapons, especially with nerfs to super energy generation and the new enemy difficulty levels. We could really see heavy rotation of these 2 exotics in the Season of the Undying. The 2 live events that happened throughout the Season of Opulence were Moments of Triumph and Solstice of Heroes. Both events asked for a big grind from the player to achieve their ultimate goal. In Moments of Triumph, the ultimate goal was the MMXIX title. This involved completing 24 separate challenges. Simple things from completing strikes and bounties to completing stuff that had gone on through the course of the year, so stuff from the Black Armory release, from the Season of the Joker release, and from Season of Opulence. There were other ones that involved having to complete raids and collecting full sets of certain bits of equipment. If you managed to do that, you got a nice new title, a time-limited title at that you could show off your prowess to the rest of the Destiny player base. The Solstice of Heroes was a time-limited event again that happened over the top of Moments of Triumph and Season of Opulence. The big grind here was that the armour you would get from the Solstice of Heroes would be the first Armour 2.0 that you'd be able to utilise when Shadowkeep dropped. This was a huge thing for hardcore players, whether they are streamers or consumers, as it would mean that you could get into the next stage of Destiny's evolution very, very quickly, the moment the next DLC dropped. I personally felt that both live events gave the season much more life. Whereas the Raid and the Menagerie were great, and they take an hour or so each once all of the mechanics and everything are learned, it is very easy to forget that only two things can become quite tiresome quite quickly. To add in these additional grinds, the Moments of Triumph and the Solstice of Heroes atop the Season of Opulence, it gave the player base a wide breadth of content to go and grind through. It gave us different targets, different challenges, again opening up things that we wouldn't have done otherwise. So how did the season itself, as an overall, feel to me, a consumer player who gets to play it around full-time work? In all honesty, I absolutely adored the Season of Opulence. If they can continue that model, so season activities, live events, exotic quests that keep the player base varied, that give you attainable targets to chase, that don't require you to put 8, 9, 10 hours of work in per day, which is simply unachievable for the consumer, I think Destiny has a solid place as many people's go-to MMO type game. They've even thrown the words MMO out there for the Destiny sphere, moving into Shadowkeep. And I've always thought of it since the original release back in 2014 as an MMO FPS type game. They are doubling down on that with the changes that are coming with Shadowkeep. And if the balance of content is as it is now, or as it was with Forsaken, so when we got the first season, when Forsaken first dropped, and this final season of Year 2 with Season of Opulence, the player base has content. The problem we may face moving forward is when we get more Black Armory or Joker's Wild type content drops. Black Armory I loved personally. It was the right amount of light content that allowed me to go off and play other games and still come back and get the top tier weapons and armor and make sure I completed everything within that season. Whereas Joker's Wild was done and dusted very quickly and was very, very repetitive. If you're looking to make Destiny a permanent game for folks, I do feel the Season of Opulence or Forsaken balance is right. If you're looking more for a game that people keep coming back to, Black Armory is probably the right way to go. Joker's Wild to me missed the mark, but overall, Destiny 2's second year has been a triumph, especially compared to its first year and the struggles and trials and tribulations that we had to go through there. We're moving into Year 3, we're moving into Bungie being an independent studio, with this being their first release of being independent, and everything that we've seen of what Shadowkeep will bring, I feel is moving Bungie and Destiny into a new realm, a realm that we the consumer, we the fans, are really going to start liking. They're building the game for us, or that's how it's coming across right now. We'll know more at 6 PM today, so in 8 hours' time, as to how well that is going to work for folks. But in the meantime, I feel Destiny 2 is in a wonderful spot. It's the best this particular game has ever been. It is nearly at the point of Destiny 1's best. And Shadowkeep has not a lot of work to do to make this that one game everybody keeps coming back to. I would like to thank you all very much for tuning in today. My name is Doragon. Please feel free to like and subscribe the video, and I will see you all in the next one. In the meantime, take care.